Aloha, my love. Welcome to Lemuria Rose Temple. I'm Celeste Glus, and today I'm going to share about the Rose Lineage, specifically the Lemurian Rose Lineage, which is what activated and awakened within me while living in Hawaii, working with the Rose Mysteries, and also receiving this very unique frequency that now is the foundation for the Sophia School of Feminine Initiatory Arts. So before we get started, go ahead and just click that like button, click that subscribe button. It helps me, it helps awaken this frequency for the collective, and it just makes the world a better place. So just do it. Okay. And before I start as well, I am hosting a women's Lemurian retreat in Hawaii this September. So if this frequency calls to you, for me, stepping on Hawaii, feet on ground, anchoring into that frequency, just being on that land is so highly activating. So if you're called to it, check out the website. Registration ends sometime in August, so there's plenty of time, but it's potent. Just being on that land is very, very awakening to your Akash if you're called by the Rose Lineage or specifically Lemuria and the feminine wisdom that comes from that time and space. Okay, so the Lemurian Rose Lineage and also the Rose Lineage. The Rose Lineage is an ancient lineage, and just like any mystery school, any secret organization, any religious organization, any organization that holds keys to consciousness, I see it like a seed. So for me, the way that I have received this is that the Lemurian Rose Lineage was the seed that was planted in the beginning of human history to hold the mysteries of the sacred feminine, to hold the wisdom, the high wisdom of the sacred feminine. That was the seed, and it was planted in the time of Lemuria, within the crystalline grids, within the crystalline caves, within the very structure of Gaia Earth. There was, in terms of information across the galaxies and the universes, if you want to go that far, information is where it's at. Light is a way of transferring information. So Lemuria was based on Earth, Gaia, to anchor in universal cosmic consciousness founded on sacred feminine wisdom principles. And so in Lemuria, it was a way of being. There were priestesses and temples that specifically catered to bringing in more information and sharing it with others. But it was very much a way of being. It wasn't like this secret thing that was happening on the DL, like it's been happening in our written human history. And I say that with very big quotation marks, if you get what I mean. You have to laugh at these things. It wasn't hidden. It was known who the priestesses were. People went to the temples. It was something that was celebrated and honored, and nobody was trying to be anybody else. And the priestesses had their role, and civilization had their role, and everybody communed. It was a unity consciousness. So for me, the Rose Lineage actually started there in the time of Lemuria. And that's the frequency when I mention the Rose Lineage, when I mention the Lemurian Rose Lineage, I connect to that seed that was planted on Earth before even the density of the human body existed, to hold the keys of creation, to hold the Great Mother, to hold the wisdom of the feminine as the soil for all that is. That is how I work with the Rose Lineage. Now, what we see that is waking up all over the world, and it's very beautiful. And also, there are many different frequencies of the Rose lineage. So there's not one Rose lineage that's better or more right, or whatever the case may be. Like I had started this conversation, like any organization that holds keys of consciousness, you have the seed and then you have the tree. The tree has what? It has many, many, many branches. And what those branches, how close they are to that seed, how much of that cellular imprint they've inherited to the purity or to the transparency of the original seed, just depends on each lineage. So, ooh, 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 do not disturb. So, the Rose lineage right now is awakening in many of us. So, how the Rose lineage awakened within me is that I actually had a very deep initiation with the feminine after visiting Hawaii, specifically Big Island. I had a very intense womb awakening initiation, which I talk about within the school and within the blogs and the podcast. And that was from that moment. A few days later, I woke up one day and out of nowhere, I was just craving roses. Now, I just want to be super clear. To this, now I love roses. I love them. But at that time, I wasn't a rose kind of girl, if you will. I loved flowers. I loved all flowers. But in fact, if you told me to choose a flower, go choose a bouquet, roses would be the last thing I would choose. And I woke up one day and I required the smell of roses. I required looking at roses. It was just a knowing, like infiltrate this consciousness with roses. And that, of course, was a breadcrumb that I had to follow to awaken this deeper lineage within. So I'm sharing this because when we are called to the Rose lineage, I think it's very important to know that there are many different frequencies of the Rose lineage. And what frequency you are drawn to is perfect for you. So when I started to do a lot of my research on the rose, because I was like, what is this weird thing? Why am I craving roses? And then I'm like, Rose lineage, it's a real thing. It was passed down from Lemuria into Atlantis, down into Egypt, through the divine mystery schools, through the divine feminine mystery schools, the goddess temples, all of that trickled down. And that's what we work with within the Sophia School of Feminine Initiatory Arts, is understanding why it was passed down and understanding the importance of these mysteries and this wisdom that lives within us and our responsibility to awaken that. But the rose in itself, the rose lineage, today, in this modern day world, has many different frequencies. And some of them, what threw me off in the beginning was that some of them are very focused on the lower energy centers. I'm going to use certain words because of YouTube algorithm, but you get what I mean. So the root and the sacral chakra is like the biggest focus of some rose lineages. And if you check out the video I've already done before, which is the pillars of the sacred feminine wisdom in Lemuria, that is a pillar of the rose lineage and the rose mysteries, a pillar. There is a whole lot more to build on that pillar, like the tree of life. And if we only focus on that, we are missing a lot of the bigger tree, a lot of the bigger story, a lot of the bigger lineage and the work that the Rose lineage is here to remind and awaken us to, from my experience and my humble opinion. But there is a part, if you're called by the rose, there is certainly a part, and that is inside the Sophia School, the seductress path, which is normally the first path that will awaken within you. If you're called by the rose lineage, you will likely start in the womb space. You have a womb awakening, you have an initiatory process around the womb, around the lower energy centers, the root and the sacral chakra, which then trickles up and affects your solar plexus, like that container. And within the Lemurian Rose quantum healing technique that I practice and that I teach practitioners, we work with that container very differently than other energy healing modalities, because that is the grail. That is the vase, the container that holds so much. So rewinding. Okay, I can go into tangents. Um, so yes, working with the womb, the initiatory process of the womb, that kundalini awakening that happens to awaken in the energy at the base of the spine and lift it up through the spine, even that is a metaphor for the spiritual journey and the initiatory process. But what I'm here to share is that with the Lemurian Rose lineage and with other rose schools perhaps that you might run into, hopefully there's more than just focusing around the womb space. There, that is a pillar, absolutely important. You cannot skip it. That's something that I learned the hard way. You cannot skip that. There's so many keys, and you'll always come back to the womb. You'll always come back to the spiral of the feminine that anchors in the womb space. So the womb is absolutely very, very important, and likely where many women start their process within the Rose lineage. But there are many other pillars. And that's what the Lemurian Rose lineage is here to anchor, is that once we anchor that, once we feel strong in that, once we feel okay, because here's the thing, the spiritual journey is a spiral. Nothing's ever complete. You're always going to unveil more and more petals. You're going to always open up one more layer of the onion, reveal one more petal of the lotus flower. So not that you'll ever complete the lower energy centers in full essence, but you strengthen it, you structure it, you anchor into that energy and into that grail. You rise up from it. You go into the different initiatory paths. So within the Sophia school, you start normally with the seductress, and then you start to move into the light bearer or the magician. And then the last thing is the creatrix. So those are the 4 paths within the Sophia school. So the Rose lineage in itself, coming back to the center, is from the Lemurian perspective, the Lemurian Rose lineage is here to anchor the ascension process in an embodied way. I actually used to have my podcast now is called Divine Feminine Ascension, used to be called Grounding Ascension. It's the same thing. When we ground the ascension process, we embody the crystalline energy, the Christ force, we begin to take the path of the divine feminine ascension. And this is how I work with the Rose lineage. This is how I work with the ascension process. And this is how I remember the Rose lineage to be passed on within the mystery schools, is that we remembered and we received, we actually were in communication with the stars and with the ocean and with light consciousness itself. We received that information from our elders, or however, whatever our role was, direct or through our community. And then we shared that with the priestesses and the priests that were ready to receive that, hold that for their community, share that within their heart fields without even having to say anything. And then also share it within the temples and within the mystery schools for those who were ready to go deeper. So yeah, I think the biggest thing is that Lemuria Rose lineage came from the stars. And it came from the stars to anchor the higher consciousness, the high wisdom of the heart, and the high wisdom of the sacred feminine. And what I see a lot nowadays is that the Rose lineage goes back to the time of Inanna. And that is yes, it does, but it also goes further beyond that into Lemuria. So that's what I'm here to distinguish, that yes, there was a group of energy beings that came in and sort of re-encapsulated, repackaged, re-commercialized, let's say, the whole thing. And yes, a lot of the original mysteries were there, but it was just like one branch extended from the seed of the tree. And it's not wrong, it's not less, it's just slightly different in terms of frequency. So we go over some of that history inside the Sophia School of Feminine Initiatory Arts, if that calls to you. And I want to leave you maybe with like a little nudge if you're called toward the Rose lineage and specifically towards the Lemurian Rose lineage. So if you're called to the Rose lineage, just the Rose, and you're like, well, what is going on? Because I remember when I woke up to the Rose, I just, again, it was this unsatiable appetite. I was like, I need to know everything about it. Tell me everything now. I will do anything. Just, you know, it's this beautiful thirst for the high wisdom is what as I see it now. And it's beautiful, it's divine. It definitely serves to create a center in the compass of our hearts. So if you're awakening to the rose and the rose frequency, and you're like, what is this high feminine wisdom? What is this thing that's calling my heart and womb? What is this thing that I know exists? And yet the thing with the rose lineage, it's not supposed to be tangible. I'm not going to, here's the Rose lineage, just read this book kind of thing. That's why it's been an oral tradition. That's why it's been held by the mystery schools, because a lot of it is gnosis. A lot of it is, yes, of course, there's transmissions, there's energy exchange. The whole school is based on a work of knowledge and courses. But the only way that you will awaken that frequency within you is by living it. Right? It's always the old adage. You can, and I'm the worst with adages and metaphors, so do not do this, like, don't take this for literal, but you can take the horse to the water, but you can't teach him how to drink water, something like that. I'm sure I got that wrong in some way, but that's the point. The schools were there to hold the knowledge. The initiates were there to devote themselves to that knowledge. But the ones who became that knowledge then is alchemized, and you become the living book. You become the living wisdom. And that's really important on the Rose lineage path. And awakening the Rose frequency within you is knowing that it's not something you're going to mentally learn. I can give you all of the books and I can talk for hours. I really can. But you have to have your own initiatory process. And that's why the Sophia School was birthed, because it took me many, 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 many years, and I'm still moving through. I feel like it's a lifelong journey, but it's the initiatory path. You can't quantum leap it. There's quantum timelines, but you can't say, like, I've completed the initiatory process. It doesn't work that way, because we still live in a time and space realm. So we're still bound by time and space on some level. So the initiatory process, and that's why there's 4 archetypes within the school, is necessary on the Rose path. It's not just, womb awakening and that's it. Those are the Rose mysteries. That's just like one small branch of the bigger tree. So if you're called by the Rose, first and foremost, if you haven't yet done so, buy yourself some roses and literally just stare at them. Just meditate with them, sit with them. Or maybe you don't like to meditate. Maybe you just have them and you adore them. Start to bring that frequency into your field. We work a lot with roses inside the school. And if you're called specifically to the Lemurian Rose lineage, if there's something that in you is like, that feels really satiating and it feels really, really, really good, check out the school. Check out the retreat that's happening this September. There's so much coming in for this lineage, and to anchor this crystalline consciousness in our hearts and wombs. So If you have any questions on this topic, I would love to hear from you. Please comment below, reach out to me, DM me on Instagram. I'm very active on Instagram. I love that platform. I don't know why. At celesteglus1111, same tag as this YouTube channel. And let me know your questions about the Rose lineage, about the Lemurian Rose lineage, about this frequency that's awakening in so many hearts and wombs. Okay, my loves. Until next time, send you so many rose blessings. Mwah.